Welcome to the Strategic Veteran, where we chart the course from service to civilian triumph. I'm Adam Peters, a veteran, entrepreneur, and your fellow navigator in the quest for a life of impact and fulfillment. My mission is simple: to empower you with the tools and stories that turn challenge into opportunity. Having walked the path from active duty to where I stand now, I understand the search for purpose that comes with hanging up the uniform. It's a path I've walked, with its trials, its tribulations, and its victories, and it's a journey we're on together. This podcast is more than just conversation. It's a beacon for those seeking to redefine our missions through entrepreneurship. It's about igniting the entrepreneurial spirit that lives within us, the spirit that compels us to create, lead, and make our mark on the world. Here we connect with veterans who have built businesses, sparked change, and found their purpose in the marketplace of ideas. They're not just surviving, they're thriving. They've transformed their service into startups, their experiences into enterprises, and they're proof that you can too. So whether you're scribbling business plans on napkins or stepping into the arena of innovation, remember, you're not alone. You're in good company. So let's explore these stories of transformation and take the first steps together on our path to purpose. Let's begin. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Strategic Veteran. I'm your host, Adam Peters. Today's conversation may take a slightly different turn from our usual guest stories, but trust me, it's one you don't want to miss. While our guest, Devon Kerns, never wore a uniform, his work with combat veterans and his deep involvement in reintegration underscore a profound respect and understanding of the veteran experience. Known as the king of curiosity, chaos, and stillness, Devon brings a rare blend of raw authenticity, spiritual depth, and disruptive insight that challenges what it means to lead, live, and evolve after trauma. We could throw love in there too. Devon has spent over 2 decades leading businesses, mentoring changemakers, and guiding people, veterans included, back to a life of purpose through deeply transformational work. Whether he's speaking about the future of AI, conscious capitalism, or the healing wounds we can't see, Devon reminds us that the battlefield doesn't always end overseas, and neither does the mission. As someone who's helped breathe life back into leaders once burned out by service and struggle, his perspective powerfully aligns with our values on this show. So settle in, because this is more than a conversation. It's a catalyst. Devon Kerns, welcome to the Strategic Veteran, brother. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, man. What a intro. I'll have to borrow that.
Absolutely, man. Dude, really excited to talk to you. So first question, man, is you don't come from a traditional military background, yet you've worked deeply with veterans and transformational leadership. So can you tell us what drew you into that space and why you're so high on working with veterans?
So, yeah, that's a great question. It was never a direct intention. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 19 years old, and along, my first few years, I had a few in my early days of not knowing how to build a business. And I was just like, maybe personal training, because I was a horrible employee. Let's just be honest as to why I ended up as an entrepreneur. I always had the bug and I grew up around that. But at 17, I was like, I can't work for other people. So I'm either going to be completely homeless or I'm going to end up doing something on my own. And along the way, I had encountered some veterans. My grandfather was a Golden Glove boxer in the Marines, and heard some of his stories too. And I was always intrigued by it, but never really had a direct intention. But I got this email when I was 24, and I had been building a youth wellness company here in Denver. And there was this guy, J-Mo, who reached out to me. He's like, hey, thanks for what you're doing in the world, and I'd love to connect. The new CEO of a company we're building is coming out into town, and I live here in Highlands Ranch, Colorado, and let's connect. So I went to a Starbucks, and I ended up meeting he and this guy, Ryan Blair. And J-Mo was by heart, he still is an ex-Force Recon Marine sniper, and just a warrior, right? As you all are. And I became really intrigued by this person because he's got those ice blue eyes, and you can see that he's seen some things, and yet he wore his heart on his sleeve. And so there's this intensity combined with this deep love for life and that warrior aspect. And I'm like, wow, this is different. So we decided to go to work. I didn't understand why. I just had to say yes, and so I ended up moving into his basement. He had at the time, I think she was 6 or 7 year old daughter, single guy, and we just went to work, man. And his work ethic was far beyond mine. I mean, it was absolutely mind bending and exhausting. We would pull 48-hour straight things just to close out months, and I'm like, yeah, I get, like, all right, you did all the trainings and you sat in ocean water doing all the, stuff. That's not me, man. But let I'll, I'll,
Right.
I'll follow you. And
Welcome to our work ethic,
yeah,
man.
exactly. And it was really, really impressive. And we ended up doing some big things there. It was a pretty incredible journey. We really fell in love with the people. We blew that business up nationwide, and also Canada and Mexico and other places. And we were traveling all the time, and it was just a special experience to be with him. And I got to see the warrior side too sometimes, but I also experienced some dark stuff. I was there for some moments. I didn't ask permission to share those, but I'm sure you guys can
Put two
clue
and
in
two
on some of
together.
those
Yeah.
things. Yeah, and it was pretty dark. But I was the guy that got to go in and sit with him in the hospital, and I was the guy that got to go in and sit with him when he was having this breakdown, right? And I think a part of what connected me to him was my dad actually had those same kind of like ice eyes, and he ended up with manic depression, diagnosed with manic depression when I was young. But I was the only one invited in when he would be in manic states, and I was the only one invited in when he'd be in depressed states. But I just remember as a kid, and it was kind of the same thing with JMO. You could see that the brain was misfiring, but the eyes, they were always the same, and there was like this okayness mixed with confusion in the eyes, and I saw it in my dad too. And so really, really just fell in love with that passionate, hard on your sleeve warrior, and I took so much away from that experience. And I got to serve a lot in terms of caring for him in ways that when he needed it. And it was a special opportunity for me to kind of open up my heart, which I hadn't done in a long time, for a brother, and kind of get a little taste of that. And I got to sit in a couple rooms when he would, he had his guys out here, and they were heading down to Colorado Springs, but we all got together and drank some beers. I'm like, I don't think I'm supposed to be in this room right now. You're hearing some of the
Yeah.
stories. I'm like, oh, okay. Um, it was really special. And since then, having done some, I know we'll touch on this today, maybe even the deep dive in it, but ayahuasca journeys and everything else. And I've
We're
sat with
we're
people.
we're about to dive head
Good.
first into that. And so from here, I mean, your business journey is impressive. 25 years of business development and entrepreneurship, over 11,000 hours of leading, teaching, coaching, and consulting. You've led the vision for 3 separate boards and 3 nonprofit boards. You've worked with political leaders, Fortune 500 senior and executive leadership, executive coaches, private equity. You've founded multiple companies and investments, consulting, fitness and nutrition, marketing, relationships, dating, youth, wellness, and education, more nonprofit development for the Colorado Women's Chamber. You're the co-founder of Bloom TV, Made TV, Amagaya Media, Zeal Remote Living, Social Capital Agency. It just goes on and on and on. But really, what sparks me is your spiritual journey so far, and it feels like you're just getting started with over 100 psychedelic experiences. You've got plant medicine facilitation and education, over 100,000 minutes of meditation, which is super impressive because meditation's hard. It's very hard. You've supported 100 people through their integration in the last 14 months, and you're also a teacher and a contributor to the Insight Timer meditation app, which is an app I currently have on my phone that I don't use nearly enough, self-admittedly. So I really want to focus, because I'm a big advocate for plant medicine. It really saved my life. July 2nd through the 7th of 2023, I was blessed enough to get picked up by Heroic Hearts Project and sent to Tarapoto, Peru for, the biggest life-changing event of my life. And it has really influenced everything that I do now. So how did you first find plant medicine? Let's talk about that. What led you to plant medicine in the very beginning, if you can think back that far?
It was 2017 when I first had the experience, but it was a couple years before that. And this very tenacious, very certain woman who I had known for a few years even prior to that. She went and had her journey, and it went from being a teacher to her finding this calling to travel through. I'm forgetting where, but somewhere near Bali, um, and as she was traveling there, she encountered all these young girls in this one small village that takes hours and hours to get to, and hiking and crossing all these things, and roads constantly getting washed out. But it was a big, high traffic, sex trafficking area, and she fell in love with those little girls. And when she came back and did her Aya journey from that trip, she ended up seeing that she had to go out there and save these girls, and literally ended up not only building a school there that protects these girls, but under major threats from political leaders and all these other things, because it's unfortunately big business, right? And just for 2 years, after she started going down that path, and post her experience, she's like, Devon, I know you're supposed to go do this. I know you're supposed to go do this. I'm like, I feel you. And I did a lot of research on it. The research didn't really influence me one way or the other, right? You can't understand it.
No,
In fact, I was like, oh, I think I get this. Yeah, no.
no, you don't get it.
Yeah.
Well, and to your point, I went and got certified through Being True to You to be a transformational coach, psychedelic integration coach afterwards, mainly to have more tools for myself. I'd probably never be a coach.
Yeah.
However, that is like one of the biggest things I tell people when they're looking to do their first journey. Stop researching. Don't research. Don't ruin your journey. I don't want any expectations to form, right? And so I relate 100% to that story you just told, because it's a lot of my journey. I went 2 years ago and I've built everything that I have now since then, with this coming out of it with just, I know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I'm supposed to walk this path. I have no idea what it looks like, how to build it, how to get there. That's the work that we talk about, right? But this just, you can't compete with whatever this calling is internally in my soul. I can't get away from. I'm here to help as many people as possible. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm actually just sitting here feeling your energy around this. I'm really excited to see where this goes. I know we're kind of in the formalities and general understandings right now, but I have a feeling we're going to drop in pretty hard, and I'm excited about it. Not to set context for expectation, but it's good. And yeah, so I mean, the completion of that story is finally, I had committed to going 2 years later after she made the introduction. And we got about 30 days before the ceremony, and she's like, "You're coming, right?" And I'm like, I'm about 70% ready.
You started to back out.
And she's like, "Dude, I know you, Devon. When you say you're going to do something, you do it. And I'm not letting you off the hook here. You told me you're going to do it. We can't disappoint the shaman. We can't let them down. It's too late. You're in." And I'm like, I'm in. I know I'm in, right? And you're never going to be 100% ready for this, because again, you don't know what's coming. And it is a whole vast journey that brought me to that point. I think most people discover all these synchronicities when they're led to the medicine that even bring them to the point of doing medicine for the first time. And I had a ton, including animal signs and like all kinds of things that brought me to that particular day that got unlocked that night. And the biggest takeaway that I think a lot of people experience, whether it's their first journey or their 10th journey, they get there at some point in the true profound difference between believing there's a singularity and a oneness to this entire game and knowing there is. Belief is weak in comparison to what you discover post, right? Yeah.
You don't even have the words for it, right?
No.
Like to this day, and I've talked about this ad nauseum. I love talking about it, but I still can't even find them. And I've had 2 years to unpack my one and only journey, right? And I'm getting ready to go back in July. And like you said, you can't know. I still don't know. I'm all those same feelings from the first trip again. Excited, but terrified, right? Like, and probably even more terrified now than I was the first time, because now I know what the potential for each ceremony can be, the purging, the going through it, the battle, the internal battle with yourself that you fight through the medicine, and just all of it. Like, it's all of these emotions. And I, I've heard through my counselors and my coaches and my partners in the Amakaya retreat and all of that stop trying to figure it out. Just keep the way I did my first retreat, and the way I came to it was through the Sean Ryan show of all podcasts. He had interviewed several people that had some tier 1 guys that had their plant medicine experience, heard the results of that. Then he goes and does it himself. But what really changed for me is when he put his wife in the interviewer seat on his show, and she interviewed him. So now you're getting her perspective on the changes that were made. And I was like, I got to start seeking this out. And so I was in the worst way I could possibly be in my life. I had completely hit rock bottom, contemplating suicide, all of that stuff, right? And whether I actually had the stones to act on it or not remains a mystery. And I'm so glad that it did. But I approached that. I was like, this is fucking woo-woo. This is crazy. This is, just all those things that we're raised to believe about it. And so I had to promise myself, and I think, and I'm told this is the best way to have had my first experience, but I went down there with just 2 rules. I'm going to keep a complete open mind, and I'm just going to participate in everything. And that has served me so well. Did you approach it the same way?
Wow.
I mean, because you talked about like 30 days out, like you're wishy-washy on it. And I see this a lot. In fact, one of my very best friends has committed that he's going to go do this with me a couple of times, and then backs out every time. And then finally admitted to me that, like, it's just not for me. It's not. And I can respect that. Don't commit to it and then back out. But also, if it's not for you, because you'll agree, I'm sure you'll agree to this. Anybody who's got experience with plant medicine always agrees with this. The medicine's been working on you since before you even knew.
For sure.
Like, and so to me, that's a sign from the medicine. The medicine's telling him it's not for you, right? Like, because you can formulate those words and admit to yourself, this is not for me. And I respect that. Just don't back out.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's such a fine line there, right? In a world with 8 billion people who don't know about this medicine, somehow it came to you. Now why? It would be my question. And there are those that are kind of out there pushing it in people's faces and saying you need to go do this, and that's a different story. But if you are kind of there in that time period that it feels like you were in, where you just are lost, and all of a sudden you happen to turn something on and it pings something in you and you're called to it, and then you start exploring and the door opens, you got to walk through that door. Like that is a totally different story than somebody pushing it on you, right? And you're going, no, that's not really for me. So I don't know. I think everybody needs to trust their own intuition for sure. I can't imagine that even if you're kind of like, somewhat curious and you take the leap, I can't imagine. You may not have a great experience, but I definitely assure you, you're going to walk away with some change and some shifts and some things that you need to integrate, right? But I don't know. I know that if you know it's a no, it's a no. But if there's a slight hint, it's kind of like when I'm talking to people when they're in the medicine journey and they're going up for another round and they're like, well, like my body kind of wants to, but I don't know if I should. You get your ass up there and you take it.
Take it right now. Yeah,
you just go take it, right? Why else are you here if not to go to the depths that you normally can't? And any form of resistance is the thing that you have to break through. And resistance equals suffering, as we know, right? So yeah, it's such an individual knowing. And what's the difference between the fear that keeps you believing that your truth is that I'm not supposed to go do this versus why was it brought to you in the first place? And I guess some part of that requires faith or the story of how it was introduced to you, and kind of reverse engineering that and taking the leap anyways. I've never found taking a leap into anything is really bad.
No,
So it's like
it's scary. Well, and I think to your point, you used the word fear, and I think that's part of what the medicine helps with is just so. I've never talked about this. One of the big things I took away from my first experience was, and I know this sounds really, really off, as particularly as an infantry guy who went to war 4 times, but I always had an issue with my own mortality. Always, right? I was this disgusting, sickening, just hollow, empty feeling in my gut when I would think about death. And death in the sense of not actually dying, but the finality of death and the fact that that's it. I'm not here anymore. The world goes on without me. Those kind of things, right? Start running through your head. And you get this complete, just disgusting, empty feeling in the pit of your stomach. I've not experienced that since at all. Right. So it completely took that away from me. It also completely took away kind of the fear of pursuing things because of some other things, right, which I'm sure we'll get to, but just that I'm not capable or I'm not smart enough or right, like that kind of fear. Is that been your experience with this stuff as well?
Yeah, I mean, some of these seem like really simple questions, but when you look back on those journeys, it's why I kind of giggle every time you ask me a question, because I'm like, yeah, and like to levels that are totally unexplainable. But you know what was kind of hitting me, even in what you were just sharing, is let's just say the exploration around death. What has shifted for me is the core of all fear is the fear of death. And this is a very or potentially a very woo-woo way of explaining what I have discovered about death, which death is a lie. Death is a lie because everything else in the universe, even if we just look at the trees, the leaves aren't dying. They're simply alive, falling off, and life force is composting them back into life, right? So everything works that way. And I've sat in so many journeys where I've been in this, they reference it as kind of one of the Naga dragons, right? And one of those dragons is the perpetuation of expansion from one moment into the next moment, which there's no end to the old moment. It's just a forward momentum into the next moment. And in a state of true presence, you can begin to experience that truth. So through that process, I was able to realize that death is the lie, but it's a necessary lie in order for us to preserve life. Like if we didn't have pain, there was this analogy, I think it was through Alan Watts, listening to one of his things. He's like, can you imagine us not having pain? Like it would have been these cave people sitting around just cutting themselves open, going, ugh, and playing with their guts, going, ugh, and then just dying. We would have never survived. So these things that we try and run from are actually necessary for our earthly experience. Pain, death. It brought the purpose to life. But when you can expand beyond that, for me now, I don't have a fear of death. I just have this innate preciousness for life and how desperately I want to be here for as long as I possibly can. And that shift changes everything, to your point, in a direction of like, now what? Now what? Now what? It's this constant looking forward to this next moment. And the fulfillment that comes out of that is extraordinary. And you can't shake it. You can't go backwards from there.
No. And to your point, like to live as best I can while I'm here. And I think what helps with that is, at least my takeaway from, and you've got way more experiences than I do, so maybe there's something in this, but for me, it's like no longer fearing death, because in my soul, I know that there's something else after this. You can't take that away from me. I've seen it. I've experienced it to some degree, probably just an nth of whatever happens next. But But just knowing that, it's like, okay, so I have to do everything I can to live as good as I can here. And now I'm no longer afraid of that. So it never comes up. Right. And so it allows me to keep moving forward. And it allows me to be okay if I don't wake up tomorrow. I
Mm-hmm.
did everything I could today. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? And for me, that just looks like I'm supposed to help as many people as I can,
Yep.
which turns into, the audience that I've built here, because I am a member of this audience and I know that we can live better lives after service. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
like, that's what it did for me. Just like
Mm-hmm.
kind of, I guess, as we, kind of unpack all of this, it's a relationship with a creator.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
knowing that, this all wasn't by accident.
None of it.
And so that's where I ended up
Yeah.
with all of it.
I'm going to go a roundabout way to talk about what you're saying with a pretty bold statement for some. Um, I've discovered very quickly in my pursuit of enlightenment that I definitely did not come here for enlightenment. My goal is not enlightenment. My goal is not to be spiritual. My goal is to know and find and discover that which I was before I got here, that which I will be when I leave, and integrate that into why it came here, which is the human experience, and to live so fully and so deeply, not happily, not emotionally. Those are consequences of the fullness of life and the embracing of the pain and the embracing of the creation of things, right? And to be in a state of profound gratitude for that which comes into my life, no matter what it is, and to sit in that gratitude and to deeply find the integration of all that I am, not just getting caught up in the emotional state or trying to escape it by pursuing spirituality, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a big dilemma as people do plant medicines, as they begin processes of yoga or meditation or whatever. They just apply a different variation of seeking instead of presence in what is, right? And there was a dialogue that I was in not too long ago where somebody was like, I actually think that the anxiety is the consequence of the spirit wanting to be in body and the ego wanting to not be in the body, right? And so it creates this anxiousness and contradiction. Because why else, if you have any level, whether you believe in souls or not, somebody's talking to me. It was one of the more profound things. Sorry, I'm bouncing around a little bit, but
It's all good.
Eckhart Tolle in The Power of Now, he sat there and he was at his desperate point of wanting to leave this planet. And I thought it was the most profound thing out of his entire book, because most of it, I'm like so far beyond me. I've read it like 10 times. I'm going, I don't understand what you're
Right.
saying. But he was sitting there wanting to leave with the readiness to pull the trigger and end his life, all alone, by himself, saying, I want to kill me. And he paused and went, who the fuck is I? And why do I hate me so much? Like, who's talking to me right now? And if you've ever had that experience, you got to ask, who's talking to me right now? We think
Yeah.
it's the mind, but there's a mind between the dialogue and something else. And it's something else that when you sink deeper into that something else and you begin to dialogue with it, it's always going to be a softer voice than the ego. The ego screams, this part of you, this soul part of you, doesn't care whether you leave or not, doesn't care what you, has no judgment. It's just like, well, that's what we're going to do. It's what we're going to do. And it sounds so harsh, but it's not. It's just in the state of like, hey, psst, it might be better over there. And your ego's like, no, I don't want to go over there. It's just
Right.
this really cool dialogue, right? So to to build the relationship with what you've been for eternity while embodying this this preciousness of life, this thing that we've lost on this planet, which is the honoring of just being alive without needing to pursue or do anything. And we're so programmed to do that it almost breaks people for a little while. It's one of the hardest things that we're actually going to be facing with this AI revolution. And I'm so convinced that as the doing gets eradicated for humans, as AI and robotics is able to go build homes, is able to run private equity, it doesn't matter what level you're on, it's going to be far better, far smarter. The one thing it's not going to do is have a desire to create, at least not for a while.
Mhm.
So if you can find your desire to create something, but you don't have to spend the hours doing it, who are you and what are you doing with those hours? And it's a gap that I've been playing with a lot of these leaders in, is exploring, can you be as valuable doing nothing as you are the greatest something you'll ever do? And they kind of have their own medicine journeys without needing to do medicine, in the essence of like, but if I'm not doing it, I have no purpose. Oh, really?
Right.
Really?
I
Right?
would argue that your purpose shifts.
Yeah. I
Ooh, I hit
think
him with a
any
good one.
purpose becomes a purpose that can be birthed out of the deep an appreciation for just being alive
Correct.
and how
I agree with
temporary it is, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, you find I do know that we have these certain codings within us. I'm obsessed with the gene keys. I don't know if you've ever explored those.
Oh, we're opening that rabbit hole right now.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
But the coding, that threaded coding in us that we just know, and when we can listen to that itch and follow that itch, there is something there that is, purpose may be too strong of a word, but it's a natural state,
And
right?
see, and I really relate to what you're saying right now. I just call that my gut feeling.
Mhm.
And, for most of our lives, we're kind of told not to trust our gut as much as we should. And for me, on the other side of my journey, everything I do is just trusting my gut. And I
Mm.
like when I work with veterans on a pro bono basis and just meet with them to just kind of give them some nuggets. One of the things I talk to them about is like, a big problem when vets transition out is they're sold the lie that you're a veteran, everybody's going to want to hire you. Congratulations,
Mm.
get a degree, you got a six-figure job, you're successful.
Mhm.
I don't believe in any of that. I followed that roadmap to a T when I got out and still ended up at rock bottom,
Mhm.
feeling empty and confused and not knowing or whatever. But now I tell people like, if you're in a job because it's the first job you took when you got out because you were desperate to support your family and all of this, and you've got that gut feeling like this is miserable, I hate this, you should probably listen to that because it's telling you you're not walking the path you were meant to
Mhm.
walk when you
Mhm.
were put here on this earth for whatever
Mhm.
reason that was. And I really believe that, and it's so awesome to get to talk to somebody who believes similarly. It sounds, I'm saying the same thing essentially you are, just in a different way.
Yeah.
In that, I want to talk about, you started talking about the ego and the
Mhm.
dichotomy between the ego and the self and kind of your soul and all of that. What I want to talk about and kind of get your thoughts on is I hear a lot of people, and I think wrongly, talk about a plant medicine journey as an ego death.
Mm.
I don't believe in that.
Mhm.
I believe that the ego does serve a purpose. It's here to
Mhm.
protect us. And I think what happens is our ego kind of gets too big for our britches and it starts to take over and sit on that throne that
Mhm.
controls you. And that's where we end up in, a lot of these dark places and all of
Mhm.
that because the ego is now become overprotective. Do you have any thoughts or feelings on that?
Yeah, I do. I'd say for me personally, I look at it a couple different ways. On a day-to-day basis and in the process of integration, I literally have conversations with my brain and my ego, and I just tell it I love it, all of it,
Yes.
right? Because at the end of the day, it's hardwired biologically for survival, And in our world, particularly today, when there's not usually for most of us, you guys have lived the edge of this of the zones of war and everything else. You're living on that edge of literally facing that. But for us spoiled people over here who you've been the protector of and given us the freedom to sit over here, there's no monster jumping out at me on a day-to-day basis, right? I got to watch out for cars when I'm crossing the street with my daughter. Like, that's the biggest thing. And the downside to that is my mind is bored, and so it'll fabricate scenarios to figure out how to stay in that survival if I don't know how to dialogue with that ego, and then I create these spiral loops, right? So I've just learned to fall in love with it because it's not going anywhere, not
Right.
anytime soon. And on the flip side, during a plant medicine journey, and I do believe this needs to be talked about more and maybe pointed out more clearly for people. You most definitely, and I most definitely have experienced the complete like shattering of my of all that Devon was, and Devon has completely been obliterated into the non-existence so that I could go to places that this 3D construct does not let me go.
Yes.
But that's in medicine to then get information to come back here and integrate it into this life and use it as a method and a dance with the ego.
Yes.
And to create that holistic nature with my ego, I think is so important in the integration of the work, and to stop having this ego versus ego battle, because the soul again has nothing but this. All right, what are we going to do? You're going to get all egoic, you're going to be reactionary, go for it, right? It's the ego going, oh, why did you do that? And then
Yeah.
you beat yourself up, and then you end up in these endless loops, which
Yeah.
actually is a part of the process that leads to addiction or anger or anxiousness,
Yes.
any of that stuff, right?
I love that you just touched on that, because my experience, and again, people, I'm glad technical difficulties, folks. Sorry. I, I'm really glad that you talk about that complete destruction of self when you're in the medicine. And a lot of people look to me as an expert, mainly because I'm just a voice who talks about his one and only experience. And I'll have another one coming July,
Mm.
leading my first cohort down there, and I'm really excited about it. And I hope to have many, many more. And I approach it all with kind of the notion that the medicine calls you when it's supposed to, when you're supposed to come back and do it. It could be, for some people it's 6 months later. For some people they do it once in their life and they're never called back to do it again. It really runs the gamut. But you talk about that destruction of self, and it really brings up powerful feelings for me, because I was, good, bad, ugly, and different. I don't know. I think it was great, but they encouraged us to take a before picture and an after picture. So at the beginning of the retreat, take a picture, and then at the end of the retreat, right before you leave the retreat to go home, take another picture of yourself. And so I did that, and I took it in the same spot and tried to kind of replicate the same photo, right, before and after. And then I use an app called PicStitch, and I put them side by side. I look at photos from July of 2023 in that retreat of myself, mind you, not just the physical changes. I lost over 100 pounds, in shape, a lot less gray hair at the time. I'm 2 years older now, so obviously I can't beat nature, but I don't recognize myself. That version of me doesn't exist. I wouldn't, if I met him face to face today, I probably wouldn't, one, like him very much, and two, I wouldn't know anything about him. Did you experience that, and do you continue to experience that in the journeys that you've been on? Or does that kind of go away afterwards, and then you start working on, some deeper level stuff within yourself? Does it kind of build on each other?
Yeah, uh, in some ways, what I'm about to say feels contradictive to those within the realm of shamanic healings and all this other stuff. But I really do feel like, if we were all doing things right now on all levels, the world wouldn't still be what it is, right? And as intense and dense and crazy
Angry
and
and
chaotic
angry.
and
It's just
angry and
angry. Yeah.
super fun if you look at it in different angles. But uh, like even in plant medicine ceremonies, right? I've done almost 40 now. Um, half of those have been because I've been called since 2017. The other half is because, as an example, I would love to do one with you here, Adam, when you're called back to it, uh, and just kind of experience you and the bigness, because there's something so vast and so huge that you're about to unleash, and I feel it. But like, man, I just think the idea of going, here's how I put it to people that I've gone and done journeys with. Let's pretend that this medicine, some are actually starting to explore that the idea of psychedelics in general actually don't induce a psychedelic state. They actually turn off the part of the brain that is fully functional in our world so that you can see reality. And that's a bit of a twist on things, right?
I
Like
like that.
if it actually is a chemical that is is inducing DMT, but it's also diminishing the veil so that we can begin to see reality as it really is. And if you think about it, we have to see it this way in order to cross the street, right? If I'm lost in that world, I'm not functional in the three
Right.
dimensions. Either way, whether it's inducing a psychedelic state and a great teacher comes in from that, or lowering that veil so you can see reality. I always tell people, maybe if you had the chance to lower that veil and from the other side experience, call it the great creator, call it God, call it
The
grandma, the great
universe,
teacher,
whatever.
whatever you
Yeah.
want to experience.
Yeah.
If you had a chance to sit with the Almighty for 8 hours, would you be like, oh, could you heal this boo boo right here? Could you like fix it? Or would you be like, show me
Show
this,
me. Yeah.
show me what this
Yes.
whole thing is
Yes.
about, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so I went in that way. Something intuitively said, yeah, we're going to constantly have stuff we have to shed. I definitely do. I've seen my version of hell with the death of my father and suicide and losing 8 other people at 13, 14 years old, and like losing companies and blah blah. Like I've experienced suffering, right? And I know that there's work that I needed to do through that, but I was also like, something's bigger here. And so I went in with an intention not to heal, but something told me, if I focus on an intention that is vast, show me how powerful we can be, show me how this game really works, whatever's in my way of seeing that will get removed. So the healing is a byproduct of an outcome.
Yeah.
And when I'm aiming at the outcome, let's look at the reverse of this. When I watch people go in solely for healing because they view themselves as so broken, which my perspective is nobody's broken, they're just having an intense human experience. And I know that's yours as well. I just don't want to project
100%.
that on
Yeah.
anybody.
No, you're
Uh,
right.
but but when they go in and they're solely focused on healing, they may get the healing, but the question is, now what?
Mhm.
They weren't given any sight as to the result of what it looks like from a healed perspective, how big they could play, how amazing life is. And when you don't get that, even if you're integrating the healing, and so you're telling the same story over and over of what was broken. And the problem with the story is you can't tell that story from even a healed perspective without bringing some of that story back and bringing it back into the body and reliving some of that judgment and emotional experience and shame that comes along with it. But if you have an outcome that's bigger than the story, bigger than the healing, then when I go to integrate, I focus on the outcome. I don't focus on what I let go of. Right. And
Yes.
from that place, I'm actually integrating the wholeness, not the healedness.
And I totally agree with that, because it's when I talk about the things that I overcame from that first journey, right? The childhood trauma that I grew up with. I'm not talking about it to relive it. I'm talking about it. I was able
Mm-hmm.
to shed these things and then do XYZ because of it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
building this podcast, building the personal brand, partnering with Amakaya, starting the AI company, that stuff was all because I was able to let go
Mm-hmm.
of and understand those other things. And I love, we've thrown the word intention around a lot. And I think, to me, and I may be wrong, you may look at this differently, but to me, intention is the biggest part of any of this stuff. I truly believe that, because all of my training when I went to the retreat was centered around how to set intentions and not expectations so that you do get,
Mm-hmm.
kind of the best result. And I was so lost when I went and did it. I told you I kept an open mind. That was like my goal. And then to participate in everything from the yoga to the, whatever other events were going on there, from turning in our cell phones and turning them off in complete disconnect, which is probably the best idea ever. I'm really excited for the future with Amakaya because there's some sweat lodge stuff that's getting incorporated. There's, a more intense dieta with some fasting, which I've become a huge proponent of, particularly when you start looking at humans as an evolutionary being and kind of how we have unprecedented access to food, and like we probably don't need as much food as we have. And, and then understanding that fasting, because of the way we've lived our lives, is actually really challenging. And then all good growth comes on the other side of the most extreme challenges in your life. I agree with everything that you're saying. And the way I approach taking medicine, and I think, kind of as I prepare for my next ceremony here in July, is my intention is to just explore. I just want to explore the medicine, just fully submit, because whether you think you're going to fight this shit or not, I promise you, people, there's no fighting this. It's going to do what it's going to do. And I think the harder you fight, the more it's going to punish you. That's how I look at it. It's kind of a reward / punishment. You're going to have ups and big downs and big ups, and like, you're going to run the gamut of everything, through your ceremony. However, I think if you can just submit to the medicine and really, grasp the concept of asking it questions like, what are you trying to show me? And I know this sounds crazy. I know this sounds crazy to those who haven't experienced it, but I think that's a recipe for some serious growth afterwards, and some serious, I don't know, like, revelation of the path that you're supposed to be following in life.
Yeah, the idea of like, show me who I am, and show me what I cannot see.
Yes.
About me and this life. Yeah. It so I feel a couple things for you, if you don't mind,
Yeah, of
in
course.
those statements, right? And we all have to start somewhere. And so in the beginning, it is so incredible that your story is playing a role on a level of service, because there's a level of relatability.
Right.
What I feel for you deeply, and I'm kind of that weird guy that can freak people out in terms of what I actually can see. And I'm going to throw this out there to you, but like anything, don't latch onto it. Just know that it's unfolding, but it's relative to what you were saying in terms of intentionality. The story can play a role in the growth, in the healing, and in service to others. The story can also begin to trap you in terms of the level of service that you're capable of actually doing for the world. And that's where I would say to you, yes, this story of working with vets because you were one, and the relatability there and everything else. But when you find, through this expansion that you're talking about in this journey that you're going to do, if what unlocks for you there is the total eradication of the story itself, it doesn't change who you're serving. It actually serves them deeper because of how desperately attached they are to that story. And I'll give you an example. Jay and pretty much every military human I know, that camaraderie, that brotherhood at such deep neurological levels for the sake of survival, for not only you, but the pressure of the country is on every one of those individuals. It was so tough for him to not, even when he had a head injury, he had to learn how to walk and talk all over again and all that other stuff, he couldn't stop. And he missed his brothers so deeply, and he missed the story of his brothers so deeply that he ended up putting himself back. I mean, he by this time he had four kids, right? He had all these humans that he had to take care of, and he loved so deeply. And on the flip side, he had to keep going and doing this contract work. He had to keep, and I'm like, Jeez. And we finally got him to see that maybe you can build the same camaraderie as like a firefighter. So he went back to firefighting and paramedic kind of thing, right? And he found that, and now he's not doing that, and he's back off
Yeah.
doing this other
Well,
stuff.
and I really appreciate this insight because I've already identified this for myself. In when Jonathan and Kaisa reached out to me, said they had been following my journey. In fact, Jonathan's words to me were, "You are a perfect antidote for how powerful this stuff can be." And I'm like, okay, cool. When he reached out to me at the beginning of this year, I hadn't spoken to him in 18 months since I left the retreat. Had no idea that they were following everything that I had been doing. And the way it worked with HHP is there's a signal group for our cohort, and we made some promises at the end of the retreat to one another. And I looked at the signal group as a way to hold myself accountable. I made promises to you guys that I was going to change things about my life. And so I would do regular check-ins on Signal. Even to this day, I still do it. And I think that really helped me integrate all of the experience. But I had been feeling kind of like things were slipping. I was falling back into some old patterns. And one of those things is not valuing my time enough and really leaning into, like you were saying, the story. And because I was one and desperately trying to fill my calendar with as much free work as I could to just help my brothers and sisters. And I realized that I was, that age old adage, right? If you try to help everyone, you end up helping no one. And so it's really the synchronicity of them reaching out, asking me to partner with them to bring veterans to this experience. And I really think, and then talking to you, hearing you say, like, leaning into the story is going to kind of hinder the growth that you're going to experience. That's kind of what I've been wrestling with too, and kind of have already put my finger on is like, maybe that's what I'm going down here to work on. It doesn't change the way I want to approach my ceremony this time. I really want to have that open mind, participate in everything. This time I'm adding a 7-day fast to the whole thing. So that's like the big challenge for me. But like just submitting to the medicine and like letting it do what it needs to do is my only intention. And I really think that I can't go wrong that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And the component that I feel for you in that, and others as they find intentionality, but that intentionality isn't boxed. It's expansive, right?
Yes.
It has an openness to it that you all that you're coded to be lies there. There's no need at that point to actually force my doing or what I'm supposed to participate in. It's actually, ironically, through the vastness of that expansion that the natural state of you comes out. Now, in the application, everything kind of, because we live in a world of duality, everything has two components to it, right? If I'm going to create something, it can't be like a lake and no fluidity and no boundaries to it, because if it doesn't have boundaries, the river doesn't flow and that current, and you're not riding, in the direction that you want to ride. So for you had this first experience and there was probably a bit more of this intentionality.
Right.
And now you're kind of like, show me, right? And in plant medicine, that's great if you can get there and it's a true intention and you're called to that intention. The application on the other side of who you really are from a natural state requires definitiveness. Right. It's kind of this idea of, again, going back to the gene keys, it talks about in this wholeheartedness and full commitment versus half-heartedness. And nobody that I know of, other than business leaders and people in the military, understand wholeheartedness better, right? Yeah, it's like all in, ready to die.
That's it.
And that level of intensity is so potent when you can be aligned in life, and it doesn't actually apply to the big thing you're doing. It's how you're doing the dishes. It's how you're cleaning the house. It's the vastness combined with the wholeheartedness in what I'm doing presently that creates this momentum towards the goal that you're wanting to actually build. And the natural order of that unfolding becomes incredible, right? So it's not just a wholeheartedness at the mission, it's the wholeheartedness in the present moment with complete surrender and complete trust and a complete allowing that this is what I'm supposed to be doing right now completely, without the
Yes.
worry of whether I'm going to get to that goal or that objective or not.
And that's been the most powerful thing for me since my first journey is like, let's just use the money, for example. I have not thought about, nor do I give a shit about money. I've really taken, I haven't made any damn money in 2 years. Like just structure my finances in a way to allow me to do the thing that I think that I'm supposed to be doing, which I now understand, is this podcast and building the personal brand to help our brothers and sisters. But through that, it has created opportunity that you wouldn't believe for me. And I think that's kind of the whole point of it. But beyond that, it's like, I just feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. There's no hemming and hawing about it. I don't wake up not wanting to come sit at my computer and move the needle forward. I don't hem and haw about, oh, there's another veteran on my calendar. I got to talk to this guy and figure it. Like, it's just exactly, I feel exactly like what I'm supposed to be doing. And in that, it's allowed me to understand that if I continue doing the things I'm supposed to be doing, all those things like money and recognition and whatever they will come when they're supposed to come. It just, it just kind of works out that way. And so I don't know. I know you have way more experience with this. I hope to gain as much experience as you have, and I'm sure that I will. And it's been interesting to see someone else with experience's perspective on how I view these things and how so in line we are with all of these things, because this stuff is so special. It's so powerful, and it's not woo woo. In fact, it's made my life better. Like, the intentionality in the one of my favorite authors is Greg Hurwitz. He wrote the military thrillers, the Orphan X series. And one of the 10 rules that the orphan must follow is how you do anything is how you do everything. And it's like, man, just hearing you say that, I hadn't realized, but like, there's a certain intentionality behind everything that I do, which has affected how everything else in my life falls into place. And it just kind of works itself out. Do you experience kind of the same thing?
So I read a quote from Henry David Thoreau when I was 19 years old, and it came back to me just this morning. I was walking with my baby and my partner, Monica, and this came to me, and I'm like, why is this here? And now maybe it was for this moment, and it's along the lines that you're talking about. It's from Walden Pond, and most people know the first part of this quote, but they don't quote the second half. And it's, if one advances confidently in the direction of their dreams, they will meet with a success unexpected in common hours. New, universal, more liberal laws will begin to establish themselves around and within him, and old laws get interpreted in his favor. Now, if we take politics out of liberal, what this is really saying is, through the wholeheartedness in the direction of your dreams, you're advancing that direction. We never know how it's going to happen. The idea that anybody can write a business plan and know how that's going to happen, if they tell you it happened exactly that way, they're full of shit and they didn't build anything.
100%.
If you advance confidently in the direction of your dreams, you will meet with a success unexpected in common hours, meaning it's never going to be what you think when you think it's going to be. But the new, more liberal laws simply mean, when you look at our world right now and the people who are complaining the most, they're actually getting hyper conservative in their way of life, which is a tightening of life. Liberal doesn't mean political in this sense. It means, oh, there's more. Oh, there's more. Oh, there's more. It's an opening up to liberal laws, meaning opening up to the vastness of what's in front of you. And I'm saying all this for a reason, because I want to come back to one of the statements you made a few minutes ago. So new, more liberal, universal laws begin to establish themselves around and within you, and old laws get interpreted in your favor, which means now as I'm getting more vast and more open to potentiality that's sitting in my field, old laws, all the laws that we currently have as a system, bend in my favor.
Yep.
And that should be mind-bending to us. And if we just did those things, be wholeheartedly committed to the direction of your dreams and wholeheartedly committed to whatever's calling you right now, and become more expansive and open up to what the laws are just on this planet. So they're true for the universe. But going to a statement you said, I don't give a shit about money. I see so often people say this, and yet they want to serve so deeply. The money has nothing to do with you. There is a law of reciprocity through the process of expansion. And if we cut ourselves off from the receiving of the thing, the well dries.
Right.
Yeah, I look at it and I use the analogy of an apple tree. An apple tree is delusional. You only need one seed to create another apple tree, right? And we live our lives going, oh, just one seed, and then it'll happen. Then I get another tree. But the apple tree is like, no, you joking? I'll produce 100,000 apples in my lifetime, if not more, maybe more. And every apple has 5, 6 seeds in it. Like, what's the intent of that if not abundance?
Right.
Right? Our law on this planet, the leaves fall, more leaves come. Everything has reciprocity and it's always expansive. We are grinding our gears currently on this planet by holding on to what was, a refusal to let go of those old stories, and a refusal to expand in the abundance that's sitting with us. And for you, Adam, again, kind of tapping into this wacky part of me that I absolutely love, and I only call it wacky from a joking perspective. I know how truthful and real it is. You have incredible abundance sitting in your field. And when you have an energy that's actually shutting that down for you because you want to serve, you actually aren't serving at the level that you think you can. Not only because money helps you be places and do things, but because it actually requires from the other receiving your work for them to have input.
Oh, and I'm
for them
already
to
aware of
sacrifice
this.
something. Yeah.
I was actually reached out to by someone who has the same level of experience that you have with the plant medicine. He's like, your challenge for this year is to receive. You have given more than most, and you're same thing you just told me. You're blocking yourself from receiving,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think that's a big part of hopefully what I get to get enlightened on when I go in July, because
it already.
I do. It's just it's putting in the work to get out of my own way and actually start receiving, right? And so, man, a lot of what you talked about too. Have you read the Kabbalion? Oh, a lot of these things. It's something that was dropped in my lap after my plant medicine experience, and it's kind of the rules of the universe and like what we're talking about here. And it talks about a lot of the things that you just talked about. And so you should grab a copy. I think you'll really find it interesting. It's just another rabbit hole to go down. And so, man, we're out of time, dude. The hour flies fast. I really appreciate you being here, man. Please, can you tell everybody how they can get in touch with you if they want to, have a deeper conversation about plant medicine, or look at coaching from you, your business acumen, all of that good stuff. I see a world in which we bring you back on to talk even more about this stuff, because
let's do it, man.
This stuff is so much fun. If you want to come back for a part 2, I mean, I'll have you for as many parts as we can. I like exploring this stuff. It's a good mental exercise for me, and it's humbling to have somebody kind of look at things in the way that I say things and use their vision to kind of point me in another direction. And I am just so grateful for it. I need that. We all need that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Literally all of us. I'll leave you with this thought because it's something that's hitting me right now, and then I'll answer your question. The idea of when I see me, you will see you is a thread that I feel so drawn towards. When I'm willing to go in and discover all that I am, I don't need to help the other do that. They actually naturally awaken to that idea, right? And particularly when we're in our presence together. So I say that because if I can serve on this podcast with you in any way, it's the only reason I'm doing podcasts, to be honest with you. I just kept having this itch, and I'm like, I don't know what else to do. I just need to get this stuff out of me and serve as deeply as I can. And I know that's part of the reason you even started this, right? So I'm just honoring the itch, as I call it. And so I'm here for you. And more importantly, for you specifically, Adam, if I can be of any level of service and holding space for you as you're doing this work for people, I would love to do that. And I don't mean coachy things, because you don't need that. You're doing the work. But just whatever you need, man. If it's a journey together, if it's any, whatever, just let me know. And more introductions, introducing to JMO for a great dialogue with him would be really cool. And some other people, Tammy, who she's a female veteran that's now running a nonprofit out of Africa, right? Really inspiring human being. I'm here to serve, and I love your mission. I love your heart. I love what you're doing. And so just know that I resonate with that. And as far as anybody out there, if I were to work with people, I'm not truly a coach. I love building the businesses that I work on. But if somebody is kind of right at that cusp of feeling like they're launching something or building a business, and they know they want to do it differently, I can help unlock those things. So just reach out. Like I'm again here to serve. In the way you find me best is probably my email. It's just Devon K Kerns at gmail.com, or my website, which is Devon K Kerns, and just, I don't know, click one of the buttons and message me. I don't really know what's on there. I didn't build it.
Yeah,
so,
I love it, man. Dude, thank you so much for taking the hour to just, I don't know, humor me and talk something that's really important in my life, and something that I want to share with other people, and kind of just enlightening them on what's possible with plant medicine, and kind of getting into some of the more nuanced stuff. And I really just appreciate your time, man. I'd love to have you back and dive even deeper into some of this stuff. Maybe we do that after I come back from the second trip, fill you in on kind of some of the details. I think that would be fun. Definitely want to take you up on your offer to sit with medicine in the future. I think as many cool, awesome people that I talk to, I want to sit with everybody who's interested in medicine. I think that's incredibly powerful. I think the comparing and contrasting of lessons through ceremonies with other people can really help you unpack some of your own journeys as well. And so definitely want to take you up on that. Would love the connections, man. If you think of anybody that's a great fit, they just need to be breathing to come on here and be able to provide value, man. You're absolutely right. I started this because I got tired of losing battle buddies to suicide and seeing in Facebook groups, man, we got to do something about this, but none of us get off our ass and do something about it. So, here I have a platform now, and I have a following and a brand, but I realized that I didn't build it for me. I built it for everybody. So, sharing it with everybody and allowing people to come on and tell their stories is, I guess, the way that I get to help now, until, the universe gives me another, path forward to do even more. So I really just appreciate you being here and sharing, man. It all makes a difference. And I can't wait for people to hear this.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, from the bottom of my heart, dude, what you're doing and your outreach and your service, it just moves me and inspires me. So thank you.
I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mr. Devon Kerns. We'll be back next week with another episode. Please like, rate, review, subscribe, download. Help us get this in front of as many veterans and people who may need it as possible, not just veterans. And we'll see you next week with another awesome episode. Take care, everybody.